Hey guys, welcome back to some more AFK Arena. Today we're back over in the YouTube account and we are going to be breaking down the first iteration of the plus 40 signature items. So overall, when it comes to a lot of different heroes, building out the plus 40 signature item has not only a massive impact when it comes to stats, but it also does add extra abilities, which is going to be interesting to see. So I'm going to break down this guide, really get a feel for what it looks like, what heroes are the high priority, which ones you should wait on building. So let's go ahead and take a look at it. All right, so here we are, guys. The early guide to SI40 by Rockaday. We know he has done an incredible amount of guides in Bisdia. So what is it, and how to get it? So I'm going to go through here and I'm just going to kind of highlight some of this and highlight some of the heroes in here. There is an incredible amount of content in here. So I am going to put the links down below. That way you can check it out. So Epic Chest newly introduced, which we know we've been getting quite a few of them. Majority of players have just been saving them. In addition, we still get the Mythic chests, which are the regular red chests. Now there is systematically or mathematically a way to build these out. Now they are, of course, a very scarce resource when we're building out the plus 40 signature item, which is the reason why players are waiting to build them. Now they're also giving you these if you're going in and completing campaign stages. So as you go through there, they drop out of AFK rewards, but not too often. So you have to make sure that you do read and know exactly who to build. How should you be reading and using this guide? As you can see, the effect, the primary, advanced, and the meta. You have to take into account the meta heroes that we're seeing, even all of the heroes that a lot of whales have kind of built out. Now, like he says right here, this is a very early guide, so take it with caution on how you're going to build them, and this could always change. And of course, with the updates we know are coming from AFK Arena, it's going to make a very big difference exactly how they spin this and if they adjust anything in there. We know that the primary 4 factions are not going to go above 40 anymore. So again, that's going to be kind of interesting. And it also says right here, there's a lot of things that are not taken into account. Now, when you look at buffs from the Elder Tree, gear, other hero upgrades, they aren't taken into account because mathematically, it is near impossible because you have all of the different heroes. If you have more furniture, less furniture, depending on the collection builds, there are just an infinite amount of variables for heroes in here, which are kind of crazy. Now, of course, the SI30 priority, taking into account all the points previously mentioned, if it gives priorities to the SI30 only, if a hero gets a low rating, it doesn't mean it necessarily recommend investing below 30 like Vathiel. Now think before you're investing. That is right. And I love that he put a picture of Walker in here because we know Walker, unfortunately, is a hero that no one is investing in. Even players that built him out much higher don't really see any benefit from there. Now, recommended investments. Heroes can require different levels of investment. For instance, if you want a small boost, therefore going to 35 can be irrelevant. For SI30, it means the combination with the previous metric. And then, of course, the assumptions right here. When it comes to the Twisted Realm, when it comes to the Cursed Realm, again, a lot of things in here could change. Now, looking at the power creep, this is, of course, something to look at on exactly where these heroes are kind of built and where you're going to see it. It's very clear. It is a massive power creep with this game mode. Players spend their resources to be competitive, which is what we do. Most SI40 effects are negligible, which again, the stats are what we're looking at here. New abilities are pretty cool, but again, the abilities might not make such a huge difference. Unsurprisingly, SI40 grants a higher boost than the E60, so getting the signature items to 40 does take precedence over the 60. But again, when it comes to that E60, you are adding that extra ability. When it comes to SI40, you are adding that extra ability, which is kind of crazy. When there's already a massive power creep from SI30 and the 36 furniture. Interesting to see where the plus 50 is going to be basically equivalent to the E100. So if you have the 100 engraving, it is very similar than what we're seeing with that SI50 as we continue to go through here and as we continue to see the power creep overall within these heroes. Let's get into the heroes themselves, starting with our Celestial heroes. Now, like I said earlier, we're going to go through, we're going to break down some of these, and I love the reasoning. I'm going to go through, again, kind of more of the meta heroes. So even looking right here at the meta heroes of Demia and of Liberta, you can see meta is S+, plus 30 priority is average. The plus 40 right there is the recommended. I believe that's REC recommended. Taking them to a 40. Now, of course, these two heroes are priority within all of AFK Arena, which is the reason why the build out and having them much higher not only adds a little bit more effect. So a lot of players have also been kind of testing these on the backside on where the damage is coming. So in like Liberta instance, they have said that going from a plus 30 signature item to a plus 40 signature item adds about 2.5 billion damage. So not seeing a huge amount of additional damage out of there. But again, if you're being competitive and if you're being competitive in a lot of different game modes, it's going to make a big difference on how essentially this hero is built. And then of course it goes into the reasoning. So looking at our first two, Demia, the effects increase the damage reduction from Wind Torrent to 50 to 60%. So you have a 10% reduction, not a huge difference there. The attack and defense are both on the lowest end of the spectrum, which is unfortunate, especially because everything is based on attack with her. She is quite high HP wise, but her kit doesn't have the HP scaling. Now it does make a big difference again if they're using attack to scaling with like in the case of Demia, or if they use the HP scaling like in the original version of Taylene where HP is more important. Also gets crit, received healing, and buffer for her kit, which is excellent, especially since she has a lot of crit amplification, similar to Liberta, even though the SI isn't that good. The effect and stat-wise, it's a decent investment since she is literally meta by herself. Now looking at Liberta, grants 15% more orb damage and heal. Actually, a trap since Liberta mainly deals damage with the link and not the orbs. Erosion damage based on 600% of the attack rating. Now this is where the stats kind of come in. He needs attack, but is among the lowest receivers. If they buffed up his attack rating in here, he would just be damaged through the roof. Regarding advanced stats, he gets haste, magic E or ME or magical efficiency. He gets a lot, not really needed. He gets erosion, but the amount is not sustainable enough to warrant a plus 40 investment. You get more erosion based on your collections. However, since it is Liberta, it is still decent priority wise. And again, because of the meta standing that we do have with this hero. Looking a little bit further, and you can see some of these have a high priority, but you have to pay attention to where they are in tier lists and where we are also seeing these heroes kind of in the meta formation, because even looking kind of from the top to the bottom of where we're falling in meta, we have a couple A+, which is some of our support heroes, B+, because not really used anymore, but when we start getting probably even in the Bs or the Cs, a lot of these heroes are not really going to be used very many places at all. So looking in here, priority, and again, thinking big picture, we have Ulna in here, which I would definitely recommend build. We have Demia and we have Liberta in here to build out as well, giving us 3 heroes within the Celestial. And again, that's kind of the heroes that we're using and even recommended. Heroes like Vathiel at a 30, 35 right there for Halos, a 40 for Twins. You can go through and see exactly the reason and the logic, but essentially you don't want to build a hero to a plus 40 that is going to have no meta capacity or not be used in many places outside of the tower at all. When we look at our hypos, it's going to be the exact same. So looking through the meta, we have Zorath in there. We do have Mortis in there. We have Frampton, which I don't feel like Frampton's really used that much. But when we look down here, when we look at the S+ of Lucilla and Lavatoon, 2 heroes that are used in every single aspect of AFK Arena. Even looking there at where Lucia is being used, they put SS or S+ all the way across the board. Very high to get to the plus 30, plus 40 plus is what we're looking at. So just breaking down again, these 2 heroes. So looking at Lucilla, the effect turns her into more capable DPS, which then she is able to do everything stat-wise. She needs attack and defense, which she is among the highest of both within the heroes themselves. As for advanced stats, she receives a lot of magical resistance, which of course is going to keep her alive. Also has a lot of accuracy, which is needed since she relies on normal damage to DPS, especially with the 40 effect. And she also receives a very high crit. The combination of crit and accuracy is excellent. She is probably a must, having especially since she is extremely good in the current meta. Giving the stats, she is a great candidate for the plus 40 SI. And then, of course, looking at Lavatoon, this makes use of a new power meta with the ult buffing the highest DPS ally. Great ally to rotate between the 3 types of musicians before the power metal. Combined with the 30, is now able to do all 3 types of music. all at once using the ultimate ability. Stat-wise, he only needs attack, which he has an average value of attack. Regarding advanced stats, he gets haste, crit damage resistance, and magical suppression. More insight would have been the way to go, but overall, those are the stats that we are seeing on Lavatoon. And again, looking at the priorities, so looking at our Hypo Heroes, they are definitely probably the biggest ones to build out, probably right here with the version of building out Mortis a little bit higher. Looking at Frampton, I would probably put Frampton just a little bit lower for the overall effect. But then the rest of these, even Zorath, we're not seeing Zorath run in a lot of different places anymore. But overall, the effectiveness of those 3 heroes. Now we get into the Awakened. This is going to be the very, very interesting part. Because when you think of the meta, C++, absolutely. But look at this middle section. And when you think of the tier list, so when you're looking at the SSS or the triple S, the highest S++ heroes, we are looking at the Awakened version of Athalia. We're looking at Belinda. We're looking at Laika. We're looking at Shamira. Those are the very, very big priority heroes for really 2 factors. Number one, when you build them out and when you get them more stats, the better they're going to perform, but they do have to be built out extraordinarily high, just for the simple fact that being built out higher not only is the more stats, but it also unlocks all of their skills and abilities. So what that means is signature item building out, also looking at your furniture building out, looking at your engraving building out, making sure that you have the Awakened heroes built out in their entirety is really the focus. And again, then looking at them like Maitreya right here, SSS across the board, very high, 40 plus. When you look at some of these, it's kind of crazy with the way and the methodology with how they're being built. And again, a lot of heroes in here, depending on the stats they're getting, when you combine those stats with collections, it's going to make a really big difference. So just breaking down kind of the SS right here, of course, with Baden, the plus 40 will now allow him to reduce the tenacity and the buffer of the enemy hits with his Razor Leaf by 25 points. Excellent, since he deals erosion damage. Now, a lot of players had questions about the collections. There is erosion damage. That is what he needs to do damage. He needs attack and defense among the highest attack and has a great defense. While it makes him hard not to make him rank S+. As for advanced stats, really good high crit, average physical resistance, small bit of erosion. MR magical resistance would have been better than physical resistance. But of course, crit isn't impactful with him because you're looking at erosion with that Awakened version of Baden. Then we look at Athalia. Interesting because it adds slash to the second ability. I know the skill says cleave, but cleave is essentially translation issue, and they'll probably fix it in the future where it is 2 additional slash. It can be weird because it showed a different outcomes, and this is one that they really noted as questionable when it came to the build. Some modes that increase their DPS, some of them result in a DPS lost. This is because it messes up and it screws up the order that she attacks with her regular cycle. On paper, it looks great with all of the stats. Highest stats tier-wise are attack, which is exactly what she needs. Advanced, she gets crit, physical pierce, and magical suppression. Crit and physical pierce, of course, is very important with the +1 source collection, really perfect on her. Now, again, we know some of these heroes are going to be adjusted, and when they looked at the dev notes, when they did the announcement, the Awakened version of Athalia, again, some places she is doing more damage with the 40, some places she is doing less depending on the lineup and also the target. Maitreya's +40 grants up to 45 erosion, which is literally insane. I love how he puts this, especially since most of her damage is erosion based. So now we look at the Awakened version of Maitreya and you look at the Awakened version of Baden, really focusing on the erosion from those collection abilities. Her erosion damage is based on her own attack rating, and guess what? She is among the highest attack-wise heroes within AFK Arena. +40 gives the attack, improving the DPS. Regarding advanced stats, she gets haste, crit damage amplification, but since it's both Maitreya, both are actually good and more than enough for her. Great candidate for a +40. Then, of course, Belinda will increase the duration of Blinding Blaze from 6 to 8. Since it is erosion damage, this isn't bad, but it's not transformative. Belinda scales with HP and with attack. She gets an average attack boost, but not a good enough HP. Deals a bit more damage, but tankiness will improve her even further. Regarding the advanced stats, she gets haste, magical efficiency, and high dissolve, which is nice. Overall, a good candidate for building that as well. You can see 30 is high, 40 is recommended, but not taking it above 40. Now, Sophia gets 50% damage reduction when enemies suffer from erosion damage. This is a counter to Matria. This is a counter to the awakened version of Baden. Not necessarily when you have a lot of tools like Tassie Collection, which grants the free cheat death. She needs attack and defense. The attack isn't good. However, good defense in there, which is good. As advanced stat, she gets haste, magical suppression, and erosion. Highest erosion, which is really good. Considering the meta, she's more of, while she is a support hero, not a huge damage dealer. Now, again, when you look at some of the primary best in slot damage dealers, that's really the focus in here. When you look at the awakened version of Leica, when you look at the awakened version of Athalia and Baden, they are very, very stat defensive, meaning that you have to have higher stats in there to really get them to perform. Now, the plus 40 with Leica increases the Starlight. Number of stacks now decrease from 10 to 5, but the value gain per stack goes from 10 to 40% per stack, adding another 200% from the 100% that she got before. Starlight gives attack, magical efficiency, and accuracy. According to the support, the attack buff as well, but I don't think it's a case, meaning of 90% of the to all allies, which is ridiculous. I believe the stat only affects magical efficiency and accuracy. If it only affects those two, at least at Ascended or Ascended Plus, A or A plus, not sure exactly what it means, since it maximizes the damage of your intellect allies. Same goes for your normal attack damage dealers. Need to clarify further testing. So again, a little bit of a question mark in there. And then of course, Chimera. Chimera plays even further into energy drain, which of course can go hand in hand with the PvP aspect. Tremendous upgrade PvP. That's exactly what I was thinking. As for stats, she scales exclusively with HP and not attack, which is the reason why when you're building out her tank collections, the tank collections, you are stacking HP if you're building it for the awakened version of Chimera. And she gets a lot. This immediately makes her a worthwhile investment. As for advanced stats, she gets high magical resistance, which improves the survivability. Very high heal, which is insane on her. High dissolve, which of course is good on there as well. So it's kind of crazy. And like he kind of notes down here, the awakened Athalia needs to be fixed, which could be coming pretty soon with that fix. Now looking at our last one, which is the Dimensional Heroes. Now, of course, looking at our meta heroes right there, we still have Albedo in there. We still have Merlin in there, but overall rate here very, very high with both Rem and Amelia, who I'm going to be covering. So in here, the plus 40 makes the enemy now lose 10 energy instead of 5, which again, PvP-wise, that is massive. Campaign, that is pretty big. Other game modes might not have as much of an effect. Looks really good since her main freeze occurs at the beginning of battle, yet a lot of energy isn't there at that point. She needs attack since her erosion damage are based on the attack rating. When she gets very high attack, which is excellent. As for advanced stats, she gets haste, which is good. Magical efficiency not needed, and erosion, which is really good for her as well. Then, of course, Rem now deals 40% more damage with the Morning Star. So instead of 30, it goes to a 40. Great upgrade, although the damage doesn't come exclusively from Maelstrom, but also the normal attacks. Quite fragile, ending up with the highest defensive buffs. She needs attack, but doesn't get that much out of there, which again, based on the collections and building it up. She also gets haste, crit damage amplification, which are huge when you stack on the Source collection. She also gets dissolve, which is decent, looks promising, and a very safe investment. And we know that she is always and has been best in slot for a lot of different campaign modes, as well as the Cursed Realm Nightmare Corridor. We're still seeing her run, as well as the Treasure Scramble. Putting her with Alna in there is huge. And then, of course, Merlin, pretty average in there. We have Albedo, pretty average. But a majority of the Dimensional Heroes at this point are not seeing a lot of gameplay. Dimensional formations seem to be kind of something in the past. Now, with that being said, there's rumored that there's going to be some crossovers that are going to be coming pretty soon. So we're going to have to see exactly what that means for Dimensional Heroes and for Rem and Amelia. So overall, I hope this clarifies kind of building them out a little bit further. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. And as always, thank you guys for watching.